From the outside looking in, you seem like someone who is very calm on the lanes, but obviously we all know that at times bowling is a very frustrating sport.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that frustration? At least I've never seen you, have any kind of emotional outburst. Uh,
Yeah.
do you just kind of internalize that, or how do you deal with those frustrations?
Yeah, I'm never one to throw things or kick things or punch things or anything like that. But um, yeah, there's plenty of negative talk that goes on that probably shouldn't happen. And it has gotten better. I will say it has gotten better, but there's times where obviously doing this for a living and having success as everyone has on tour that the expectation levels start to rise a bit, and then sometimes the expectations get a little um, out of hand per se. It's like you start bowling pretty well, and then it's like, oh well, now if I don't make the TV show, this is a bad week, or um, it just starts to get somewhat unrealistic. And if it doesn't go well that week, or you hit a bump in the road, then it's that oh, everything's going wrong,
Right.
blah blah blah. And it's like, I stink, I suck, and it's trying to avoid those as much as possible. But I will say, in the last few years, I think that's part of the reason why I've started to bowl quite a bit better as well. Is I've gotten rid of some of those. Not saying completely, because it definitely still happens, and the frustration sets in. Um, but way less often have I had those thoughts creep into my head, because I feel like now I'm trying to rely on that confidence I have in myself, or in that ability that I've proven to be like, okay, like that game wasn't good, or that shot wasn't good, but I know I can do better. And trying to build the momentum back that way, rather than throwing a pity party for myself and telling myself I stink and hoping
Right.
somebody feels bad for me,
Right.
because um, tried that quite often. It never worked, so I figured let's do something else. And
It feels good in the moment sometimes to beat yourself up. But then it's a
yeah,
weird thing
yeah,
because
it's one of those, like, yeah, it's almost kind of like a stress reliever,
hmm
where it's like you're so upset, and you just want to berate yourself to it's somehow it's supposed to make yourself feel better.
right. It never
Like telling
does, but
yourself you're the worst bowler in the
yeah,
world is supposed to help.
right.
But yeah, no, it doesn't. So um yeah, trying to think of something else, and
Right.
seeing if you can kind of get your mind back into the right spot is where I think I've grown a lot as
Hmm.
well.
I suppose uh, we are the person who talk to us the most, and I guess
Oh yeah.
being nice to ourselves is probably a beneficial thing.
Yes, yeah. Lesson learned the hard way for
Yeah.
sure. And but it's so easy to have those expectations, and feel like it's like, you can bowl well, you can make a good shot. So then it's when it doesn't happen, which we're all human, it's obviously going to happen. It's You're like, oh, well, it's not supposed to happen to me. Like, not right now. Like, no, this isn't the time for me to bowl bad. This is the time for me to bowl good. But you can't do it all the time.
Right.
But in that moment, it's hard.
How do you have how do you have high standards for yourself, but manage expectations at the same time?
Yeah, that's the key. That's the trick, to where you have to be realistic. And I feel like I'm a very realistic person when it comes to like, just not just bowling in general, but um, just thinking, um, trying to think in a way where it's like, okay, like what logically can actually happen, or what logically will happen. And I think that helps, where it's I know I have the capability of winning tournaments. I know I have the capability of bowling great games, but also knowing that I'm a human being, I'm going to make bad shots. There are going to be days where maybe I didn't sleep well. There's going to be days where, you know, that bowling center just doesn't match up well with me, or, whatever it may be, there's going to be days where even my best won't be good enough. And there will be days where my not too bad is really good because it just things just go that way. Um, so it's I don't want to say waiting for the right time, but it's that just giving it your all, like no matter what happens, and saying like, listen, this is my best today.
Mm,
I'm going to give my best today, and we'll see what happens.
right.
And then the next day, I'm going to give my best today, and then we're going to see what happens. Because if you're giving it 100%, if you feel like you're giving every shot all that you can, no matter how good or bad the day is going, I think you're going to find yourself in a lot better positions than if you're just like, well, today is not my day, and it's just not going to end up well. So I always kind of look at the big picture of the PBA season as well. One of my goals was always the playoffs, and we didn't have the playoffs last year, but I think they're coming back
Okay.
next year. I don't know that for sure, but I think they are. Um, so it's that to me showed that consistency throughout the year. And I feel like in the last few years I've been pretty high in the point system, but having that thought of the big picture as well, it's like, listen, like it's not going fantastic right now, but looking in the big picture, I need to keep giving it my all. One, I can learn something from whatever is happening at this current moment, but at the same time, if I'm in 60th and we have one block left, realistically, am I going to get to 24th or whatever the cut number is? Probably not. And, unless something goes absolutely insane. But if I can go from 60th to 35th or whatever it is, like I can gain a lot of points there. And, I don't, not super into statistics or anything like that, but, you know, you want to bowl well, you want to have, some good numbers. So anything, it can do to make some adjustments to better myself or move myself up into the rankings, I'm going to keep doing that. And like you look at golf, they have the big cutoff for, the 125th, like you get to play all the tournaments and then, whatever, obviously up moving forward, we kind of have the same thing at the 50th points, but it's that, kind of every point matters mentality, at least in my head. And there'd be a lot of times where it probably doesn't end up mattering, or 100 points or 200 points maybe not doesn't matter at all, but um, you don't know that.
Right.
So
The big
that's
picture
kind of
bowling.
yes, that's kind of always been my philosophy. It's like, listen, like my best every day is not always going to be the best,
Hmm.
but if I can at least leave there saying I gave myself a chance, then it at least calms me down to where it's like, listen, wasn't good, but I didn't quit, and I felt like I bowled to the best of my abilities with what I had.
Confidence is obviously a big part of bowling. What advice would you give to, say, a younger bowler or someone who's maybe just entering the tour who has not had success yet? And obviously, when you have success, that gives you confidence, but it's kind of like a
Yeah,
chicken or the egg thing. How do
yeah.
you get that confidence to bowl well prior to having success?
I think you have to set some goals where realistically, obviously, everyone wants to win, um, but I think you need to set some maybe not quite as high goals. Like you have to be, like I said, realistic with yourself. Where it's like if you're entering a tournament, like do you feel like if you bowl really well, can you make the first cut? And if you bowl really well, can you get a check? If you bowl really well, can you finish in the top half of the field? Whatever that goal is, being realistic, set that goal and maybe even bump it up a little. It's like, all right, I think I can finish in the top half of this field. Let's try to finish in the top third of the field. Or, whatever it is to where it's like, okay, we're getting close to that goal or we're getting a little bit better to that goal. um, where I think having those stepping stones where it's like, okay, I'm seeing some progress here. Like, I finished in the top half. Now I'm going for the top third. It's like, oh, okay, a few tournaments in, hey, I got to the top third. All right, like we're going in the right direction. Let's go the top fourth. All right, we got there, and now we're getting a check. Now we're making match play, and it's and trying to build momentum that way and confidence that way, rather than just be like, oh man, I missed the cut again. Oh, I missed the cut again. I missed the cut again. It's like, well, you got to be able to learn something that you can kind of show yourself that you're actually going in the right direction. And I think that's the hardest part, is going out there, and especially I'm assuming if you're going out on tour, you've had success at lower ranks. And like I said, earlier in the podcast, it's so different pulling out on tour, like massively, massively different. And it's a big learning curve to bowl with the best bowlers in the world, to make adjustments as quick as they are. And I mean, basically bowling is a guessing game, right? We have to guess what we have to do, where we have to do it. Um, and making those guesses more educated to be able to make them correctly more often is it's a whole new game. So having the patience of being able to kind of learn that, while giving yourself some credit for
Right.
getting a bit better, and saying, okay, like I'm bowling better this week. Hey, like I made some moves a little bit quicker, or hey, like I was seeing the lane the right way. So it's having those types of goals, I think, help build the confidence, rather than just you know going in there and getting your face beat in for a little while and be like,
Right.
yeah, all right, maybe this isn't for me.
Right. How do you mentally prepare for a tournament?
Now, honestly, I feel like I've just bowled so many of them that I just kind of go in, and I kind of work through that process of kind of going through, okay, we get to the practice session, try some balls from different parts of the lane, kind of go from there. And then it's just one of those, I try to be a little more reactionary, rather than, it's funny because I was such a prepared child. Like everything had to be like, I was kind of OCD. I was very, everything had to be in order. Everything had to go to plan. And now, I travel for a living, so that never happens.
Right.
So I've just kind of adapted to where now I'm a little bit more reactionary, where, you know, maybe the wrong button gets pushed on the lane machine and
Right.
everything goes out the window,
Yeah.
or, something weird happens, so it just, you can't have, you got to be prepared, but you also have to be prepared for what you didn't prepare for. And it's, so I like to just kind of, I don't want to say go with it, but it's that mentality of saying, I'm just going to see what is happening in front of me and make my best judgment off of what's going on. But um, yeah, I feel like if I'm physically prepared and I feel like I know I'm either bowling well or bowling adequately enough, and I feel like I'm healthy,
Mm-hmm.
then I feel like mentally I just have to get there, and then start using my brain to process kind of what's going on.
You mentioned travel there a little bit. Can you offer any travel advice for someone traveling with equipment?
Yeah. It depends on if you want to go international or not. Obviously, like kind of the Southwest deal, you get the two free bags. That's pretty nice. Um, but internationally, I feel like if you have aspirations to go internationally, find an airline that has some status, with it, that will offer you some, baggage for free, and upgrade per se to go overseas, because I feel like that is the biggest thing, is people would be like, oh, just kind of find whatever the cheapest flight is, and it obviously works for a while, but if you stick with one airline, eventually you can kind of build up some status, then you get free bags, then you get some perks, and then you get maybe some the airport lounges, or some upgrades to first class, or whatever it may be, where it makes the traveling experience much more comfortable and much easier, rather than you know it's like, well, all right, well, this time I'm going Southwest, and this time I'm going
Right.
Delta, and this time I'm
Airline
going
hop.
United. Yeah, and it's like, that's all fine, but once you start going overseas, it's like then you're kind of screwed. Where it's like, well,
Gotcha.
now bags are, you know 350, 400
Right.
because it's international, and I don't
Right.
have status with anyone, and Southwest doesn't go international, so um, having that having those perks are pretty nice. And I always like to have the credit card tied with whatever airline that you choose. Um, that you can get, you typically, if you have one of those cards, you at least get one free bag and maybe a complimentary, lowest level tier of status or whatever it is. But you build up some miles so you can redeem those for flights, at any given time as well. Um, yeah, I think that's the biggest thing I see, and that's what I tell a lot of like the kids coming out of college. They're always, obviously it's coming out of college, you probably don't have the most money in the world, and they just trying to find the cheapest flights. But if you can kind of manage enough to where you might pay a little more up front, but in the long run, I think it most certainly pays off.
We all have times when we get lost on the lanes and we get stuck. What's your strategy for getting unstuck and finding what you're looking for?
Yeah, I mean, we have the fortunate um, ability to go back and talk to ball reps out on tour. But when those guys are not around, I think it's, you can find somebody that's bowling well and being like, okay, what are they doing, and how can I translate that to my game? Because obviously, being a two-handed player, well, now obviously there's a lot more two-handed bowlers, but growing up, not so much. And if I didn't really have an idea of what I need to do, I could say like, all right, well, that guy's beating me by 40 pins a game, and he's doing something very different than what I'm trying to do. How can I do something closer to what he's doing? Because obviously he's doing something right and I'm not. Um, so it's that fine line of not being obsessed with what other people are doing around you, but using it as information to where it's like, all right, well, what I'm trying is clearly not working.
Right.
And that guy is doing something that is working.
Right.
So, then you have to start translating it to be like, okay, well, you know, his rev rate's a little lower than me, his ball speed's a little higher than me, but he's using this type of bowling ball. So
Right.
if my rev rate's higher but my ball speed's lower, I need to use a slightly different bowling ball, but at least get into that area of the lane maybe. So it's kind of plugging the computer in and trying to type in the formula and see what it spits out. But um, yeah, I think that is probably the biggest thing I see where it's when I talk with kids or I watch kids bowl youth tournaments, if we're at, whatever, being a guest at a SYC or whatever it is, um, it just seems to be a lot of randomness
Mm.
with choices.
Just
And
kind of
it's like,
just
well,
trying things.
yeah, it's like, well, this one's not working. I'll just try this one. It's like, oh, well, that one didn't work either. Let's just try this one. And it's like going from bowling ball A to bowling ball Z to bowling ball Y. Then it's like it just like there's no
Spray and
correlation
pray.
of yeah, there's no correlation of what's going on. So um like I know kids tend to be a little quicker with just how fast they bowl and how quick those tournaments go. And I always try to tell kids to like take a breath, take a step back, like take 30 seconds and be like, is this the right bowling ball? I think it is because blah blah blah. Or like, is this the right bowling ball? Actually, that probably doesn't make sense if this is what I'm seeing, and that's how this ball is different than this ball. Yeah, maybe let's not try this one. Maybe let's try a different one. So it's just kind of taking that step back where it's like, why am I choosing this?
Right.
And do I believe that is truly the best? Not just we're gonna throw things at a wall, see what sticks.
Right.
So I think that's the biggest thing I see definitely in the youth. The youth bowling is just a lot of randomness.
What is the easiest part of bowling for you and the hardest part?
Ooh, man. Um, that's a good question. I feel like none of it's easy. I feel like none of it's easy. Um,
When does bowling
Man,
feel the easiest to you? Obviously, when, just physically you're just, matching up and everything. But
yeah,
when you have
yeah,
those times when you feel like bowling feels easy right now, and then you have times when it's like, I don't know what I'm doing.
yeah. I just, when the body just kind of is tied in with what the mind wants to do. I mean, it's not like you can really control that a whole bunch. Like you can, but there's some days where it's just like I don't feel like I could throw a bad shot if I tried. Like it just feels like one of those days where I don't even have to think about trying to get the ball started online because like I know it's going to go in the right direction. Then it's just a finding the right bowling ball type of deal. It's like that's where I'm trying to throw it. I'm gonna throw it there, and then it's kind of that confidence thing that builds up again. But um, I feel like I've always been a pretty good spare shooter. Um, so I would say, like I said, not easy still by any means, but I feel like to me it feels a little more simple. I guess it's kind of a point and shoot type of deal. So yeah, I don't know if I'd say easy, but feels a little more it's right there. Just hit it. um, and some days it feels very hard to hit. Um, but then the hardest, I would probably say, I mean, there for a while, it was definitely speed control, but I feel like I've practiced it so much now and worked on it so hard that now that feels a little easier to me. So if I had to pick a physical game thing, it probably would be speed control now. Like I feel like I can really kind of dial in whether I need to throw it a little harder, a little softer, and stay pretty consistent with that. Um, yeah, yeah, that's probably where I
Okay.
would go.
Transitioning just to a few personal questions. How would
Hmm.
your friends and family describe you?
Hopefully, well, yeah, I think calm is probably one of the bigger ones. I like to think I'm funny. Some people disagree, but I like to think so. Um, I try to think of others
Mm.
as much as I can. I like to give back. Whether it's helping kids out, talking with kids, if they come in the pro shop, or, be giving them, lessons or whatever it may be. So, I like that side of the sport of being able to give back. Um, so I think that's part of it as well. And I've always been a big proponent of I would rather be remembered as a good human being than a good bowler. Like it's nice being known as a good bowler and a great bowler, but that can be taken away at any given time with freak accident or whatever it may be. So I'd rather leave my mark on the world as a good human being rather than just the guy who bowled well.
What makes you feel most alive?
What makes me feel most alive? Um, I just think it's just the experiences that I'm able to create traveling and bowling, or not even just the bowling part, but just the being able to have the stories that I have from all over the world, where I talk to people that that I grew up with from middle school or high school or whatever, and I see them and they have their 9 to 5 jobs and they have their families and they have kids and it's just kind of small town living type of deal. And we get to talking and they're like, oh, like, have you traveled? I'm like, yeah, I've been to some other places. They're like, oh, like, where's your favorite place? I'm like, oh, like, oh, I've been to Korea and Thailand and Qatar and Sweden. And they're just like, you kind of see their face like, whoa. Like, so it's like having those experiences to be able to draw back from, and having stories that I can tell, even other like younger bowlers, that's like, oh yeah, this one time in Thailand I was with so and so, and we went and had, food down by, one of the rivers, and it's like just having those experiences. I feel like it's just so cool because I was, obviously, like I said, from a small town where, my family, we didn't travel much growing up. And I was pretty much a homebody. Like I didn't really even want to travel a whole bunch. And now and now I'm, I do it for a living. So um yeah, that part of me has changed quite a bit.
Who or what has been your greatest
Mm.
teacher?
Man, I feel like I was kind of self-taught for the most part, just physical bowling wise, because being a two-hander growing up when two-handed wasn't really a thing, I kind of had to do it myself. And then, when OSCU, I think, was the first one to make a TV show in like '06, and then Belmo made the show in, was it '09, I think, and ended up winning. Um, that was when it kind of took off a bit more, and I was like, oh, okay. Like I started studying them, trying to teach myself and all that. But I was always a big Norm Duke fan growing up, and how his mind kind of worked and how he processed things and how he thought and did things with conviction, I think was a big thing that I took from him. He was never scared to, be playing up 3-4-5
Right.
and be like, oh, okay, that's not working. I'm going to go to 25.
Right.
And he knew in his, he had confidence in his ability to be able to do whatever needed to be done at any given point. And if he truly believed that was what was needed to be successful, he went and did it. And I think that was one of the things that I really took from his game. And I won't say he necessarily taught it to me, but it's definitely something that I've taken from him, and I've been fortunate enough to become friends with him, and I've talked with him about it. And yeah, no, that was always kind of one of his big things. He's like, if I don't believe that I can do it, why am I even out here? So it's that, you're out here for a reason. You're having
Right.
success for a reason.
Right.
You can do it.
Yeah.
Just trust yourself and go do it.
So, last two questions. What is your favorite bowling memory?
My favorite bowling memory. Yeah, I mean, it's got to be the U.S. Open, right? It's got to be the U.S. Open. It's that thing you dream of, not just the U.S. Open, but having a PBA title. Like, growing up wanting to be a professional bowler, it's that, that the peak. You kind of reach the peak of bowling, and especially being the U.S. Open, I felt like, you're a little kid, you're practicing. It's like, oh, I need this strike to win the U.S. Open, or whatever it may be. As it was kind of the, it's like the golf. It's like, oh, I need this putt to win the Masters. It's like for us that, it's like the strike to win the U.S. Open, and to be able to be in that position, I struck to force Jacob to strike out. So like, just that moment when he did not strike and
Right.
I knew that I had won, it was just like, holy crap, like it actually happened. Like,
Right.
like I not saying I didn't think I could do it, but at the same time, it's like actually doing it. It was such a, it was like a weightless feeling. Like I just kind of felt like it was just, I didn't really know what was going on type of deal. I think even like going to grab the trophy, I was just kind of like walking around aimlessly, like wasn't really sure what I needed to do. And yeah, it's just it's one of those feelings you can't really replicate.
All right. So I saved this question till the end because I didn't want you to hang up on me. But I'm originally from Michigan, and I'm a U of M
Oh
fan.
geez, oh
We've
geez.
had your number the past 2 years. You got to come to the big
Yeah,
house this year. How you feeling
yeah.
about the game?
Well, it depends on if you guys are stealing signs. Um, uh, I don't really know what's all going on with that deal. I mean, it's not technically illegal, I guess,
Right,
but
right.
it's frowned upon. It's like Spygate with the Patriots or something. But I feel like our defense is really, really good this year. Um, like it was always a problematic of giving up the big plays, and we did that a lot against Michigan the last couple of years, where we've given up some, monster runs or some, big pass plays where it's just like, dude, like you can't beat them if you keep doing that. And this year, I actually just saw a stat last week. They were actually ranked first in FBS in 40 plus plays yard allowed, which is so they're not allowing a lot of 40 plus yard plays. So I'm like, finally, like defense is playing pretty good. Um, the QB play concerns me a little bit. Kyle McCourty, pretty good.
Yeah.
But it's obviously still kind of his first year getting
Right.
a lot of reps in, and
Right.
he's shown some really good play, but he's
Right.
shown some shaky play as well.
Right.
So, I know Michigan's defense is no joke. So it could be a 14-13 type of game. I feel like it could be. I feel like it could also be 48-45. So I mean, you just don't really know, but you can almost always count on it being a pretty close game. Um, Especially now going up to Michigan. So hopefully we can right the ship. If not, it might be the last time you see Ryan Day on the sideline of Ohio State team. Yeah, as sad as it is, you have like a 93% win rate, but if you don't beat Michigan,
Yep. You don't
you're
last long.
you're out of town.
Yeah.
You're out of town. So.
Well, Chris, it's been great talking to you. I've really enjoyed it. I've definitely learned a lot from our conversation. So thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Have a good day and good luck next season. Hopefully, have you on again to talk about your next title.
Yeah, thank you very much. OH.
Take care. Go Blue.
Right, see ya.
Thanks for watching. Please share this episode with a friend and don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you next time on The Bowler's Mind.